Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm talking about what is supposedly going to be the last film of the Daniel Craig era of James Bond. If MGM does any more future Bond films after this movie, it's going to be with a different actor, different interpretation once again, kind of like what they've been doing with Sean Connery, Pierce Brosnan, all of them. In this final installment of the Daniel Craig era, you guys, in No Time to Die, which is the title of this Bond movie, Bond is trying to live the life of a retired person. He is trying to pursue a relationship with a woman that he started seeing in the movie Spectre, the previous Bond before this movie. And they're trying to tour Italy. They're trying to kind of, live the life of a couple and try to see if potential relationship in the long term could work out between the two of them. But things kind of halt the retirement for Bond when Spectre kind of works its way into his life again. Even though Blofeld is behind bars after the events of Spectre, even though, Silva and all these other people who were once associated with Spectre are now either gone or in prison or whatever, Bond thought the Spectre thing was long done with. Apparently it is not. Spectre does work his way back into his life, like I said. And so Bond kind of looks into it again. He gets a hold of MI6. He finds out about all these 00 agents that have been hired since he left, and he's trying to kind of get back into the secret agent game again and things like that. And so the more he looks into how Spectre's kind of reforming again, the more he realizes there's this organization by this criminal who's played by Rami Malek of Bohemian Rhapsody fame, and he's trying to kind of unravel what his business is about and where it's located and how this guy is connected to Spectre, what he wants out of Bond and things like that. And so over the course of this movie, Bond's trying to live the life of a normal person. He's trying to give that a go once and for all, trying to figure out if it really is a life that he can really have at this point since he's doing the whole secret agent thing for so long. He really does see a lot of potential with the Lea Seydoux Bond girl and trying to see if a relationship in any way, shape, or form would be able to work out with her in the long run. But he is also trying to figure out how to finally stop Spectre once and for all. Does it mean killing Blofeld? Does it mean killing off buildings or organizations or islands or things that are still connected to Spectre? Is it really kind of this ongoing, unstoppable force? What can Bond do to kind of finally dissolve this organization once and for all so he can hopefully live the life of a retired person like he always has tried to do, especially ever since the events of Spectre took place? But overall, guys, I really enjoyed No Time to Die. This is going to be a spoiler-free review. I'm going to try to review this in the most safest way that I can, but I also am going to let you know about things that I think are really good about this movie and things that kind of don't work as well in this movie. But I am going to try to keep this as spoiler-free as I can. There is a couple of thumbnails on YouTube to be careful of if you haven't seen No Time to Die yet. But I'm going to do my absolute best to try to keep this as spoiler-free as I can. So, for my positives and negatives of No Time to Die, like I said, first and foremost, this is a really good Bond movie. There is a couple things about it that are kind of dividing fans with it, but I am going to talk about some things that I think really work with this movie and why, if you haven't seen it yet and you're a huge James Bond fan, I think you're going to be really happy with it like I was. So first and foremost, it does homage to older Bond films. Even the opening credits, the classic Bond opening with Bond girls dancing or silhouettes of secret agents or things that you're about to see in the movie kind of in silhouettes, and the credits work its way into it, things like that. Even small things like the colorful circles from Dr. No work its way into the opening credits. Even things like having a song that's in the spirit of Adele, even though it's Billie Eilish this time, doing a song for the movie that actually is called No Time to Die, like the movie is called, and kind of doing it in the way that Adele and Sam Smith and all the other previous musicians handled their version of a Bond song as well. It feels very much in the vein of that kind of thing. So it definitely homages older Bond films, and it does a very, very good job with it. Even the car that Bond drives throughout this movie is very much in the spirit of something you would see James Bond drive in earlier Bond movies. This film takes a lot of big risks. I really want to take be careful with this compliment, but I do want to bring it up. It does take a lot of big risks, but I feel they pay off. Take that as you will. For those who've seen the movie, you probably know what I'm already talking about. I really like how this film really tried to make a James Bond movie that kind of said, hey, we want to do whatever we want. We want to try to kind of break the rules a little bit and try something different and show you that Bond could get hurt, and Bond is not this invincible being, that he is a person just like you and I. He's probably better at a lot of other things that you and I maybe not be as strong with, but the guy can get hurt. The guy has a hard time with relationships. He's a very broken person, and so this film really kind of breaks that down and takes a lot of big risks and shows both the payoff and the downside of being James Bond in this kind of life, and not afraid to kind of take big risks with a script like this. Hans Zimmer did the score for this movie, and I absolutely love what he did with it. I'm a huge Hans Zimmer fan. When I heard that he was going to score this movie, I knew this film was in good hands. The man knows how to score a Christopher Nolan film, an action movie. The guy is just really, really blessed and magical and a miracle when it comes to music. He just knows how to score a movie. He's just extremely talented. I love what Hans Zimmer did with the score in this movie. The film also has amazing cinematography. There's, like I said, the Bond and his girlfriend slash love interest slash Lea Seydoux. They like to tour Italy at an earlier time in the movie, and it's very, very good. I really like what they did with all the Italy stuff here, and the cinematography is just breathtaking. It just really, you really feel like you're there with the characters, and you're really kind of taking everything in, and you see the flames in the far distance when it's nighttime and people are trying to, sit around a campfire and things like that, and you just really get a sense of the city and how everything's close together, and it's just so beautiful to look at. Just amazing cinematography in this film. Whoever Cary Fukunaga, who directed this movie, hired for his cinematographer, did an excellent job with this movie. It's just such a great cinematography example of a movie. And also the opening scene of this movie are just absolutely great. I love how we're introduced to this new Bond villain, how Bond and this Bond girl are really trying to make things work while on vacation, while Bond's trying to enjoy retirement, while Spectre kind of works its way back in. All of it is great. He visits the grave of somebody important from an earlier movie, and I really was kind of teary-eyed when the scene occurred. You can definitely tell how broken Bond feels about this tragic time of his life and this passing of this significant person. And everything about the opening is just fantastic. I loved how this film opened. It's a great opening scene for a Bond movie, and a great opening scene for a movie in general. One thing I am going to be careful with, but I think the message is very strong in this movie, and I feel like I wouldn't be able to successfully persuade you to see this film without you knowing about this message. And I'm almost kind of wondering if a lot of other people picked up on this message while watching this movie as well. It's just really strong. It really kind of grabs at your heartstrings, I feel. I really think the message of No Time to Die is to always have your moment and to always feel alive. I think the only way you can have your moment, too, is when you feel alive. And I think that's such a strong message. I think throughout the course of your life, all the best moments of your life and all the best days of your life, have that moment, have that thing that reminds you why you're alive and why you're happy to be alive. And I think that's just the message of the movie. And I think, going into my other compliment, I think this is the perfect title for a Bond movie, because the title No Time to Die, I think also really reflects the idea of right before your death, you're seeing life before your eyes, and you're just kind of taking everything in and remembering all the things that made you enjoy life the way you did. And with James Bond, because there's so many people after him and Spectre's always coming back, I think the term No Time to Die when it comes to Bond means that even in death, or even in moments of just kind of absorbing life that's happened right before your eyes up to that point, is just so hard to do when you are him, because you're constantly under pressure, you're constantly having a threat after you, and having that moment of remembering that you are alive is just so strong and so powerful to have. So I think that's really kind of the message of No Time to Die, and I think that's, like I said, a perfect title for this movie as well. I also love what they did with the Madeleine Swan character. She's Lea Seydoux's character from Spectre, and she's continued forward here in this movie. Spectre did a pretty decent job with her. I think this movie just completely evolves the character. You really kind of get her sense of where she wants Bond in her life, that she wants to be the girl that if Bond were to ever get married, that she wants to be that person. She wants to be the person that Bond lives out the rest of his days with. I really love what they did with the Madeleine Swan character. Once again, you can tell how broken she was. You can tell how she's experienced things over the course of her life too. That's very much in the spirit of what James Bond went through, and it's just really, really powerful stuff. I loved all the Madeleine Swan content in this movie. And then for my negatives of this movie, like I said, No Time to Die, it's a great Bond movie. I absolutely love it. I would probably rank it as my second favorite Bond of the Daniel Craig era. I think Skyfall is still my favorite. I think it's a better executed movie, and with it has a better Bond villain to it. But for my negatives of No Time to Die, and where it does fall a little bit short compared to Skyfall per se, is some of the action scenes do feel a little too far away from each other. I feel like when that opening scene really hits you and it's the great action scene that you always wanted, it really is kind of a long wait until the next one. And unfortunately, that's kind of a running theme in this movie, is they do kind of make you wait for the next action scene for quite a long time. And some of the stuff that happens in between the action scenes aren't necessarily great sometimes. But I do feel with a script that was a little bit tighter, and going into my other negative, I think the editing is just could use a little more tightening up. It is a very long runtime. It runs about 2 hours and 43 minutes, which is extremely long for a Bond movie. I think the editing of this film could have been done better. It just feels like it needed to be more tightened up, and more things could have just been trimmed out. I think a good solid 20 minutes could have been trimmed out of this movie with kind of the perfect runtime for this movie. Yeah, I think 2 hours, 20 minutes would have been perfect. 2 hours and 43 minutes is kind of a great director's cut version of this movie. So I think with a better editor, they could have achieved a great theatrical cut for this movie instead. There's also a goofy scientist character that shows up throughout this movie, and he kind of doesn't really work for me. He's just kind of more annoying than funny. There's a joke involving his coworkers eating his tomato soup or something during the lunch all the time, during his lunch breaks. And whenever he kind of shows up in this movie, I was just kind of annoyed with him. It kind of feels like something you would have saw maybe one of the weaker Roger Moore Bond movies. So I really wasn't super impressed with him. So whenever this annoying scientist character shows up and he has this dangerous briefcase thing with him, I was more annoyed than happy with this character whenever he showed up on screen. There's also a foggy forest scene in this movie that some people either really like or some people really don't like in this movie. I'm unfortunately on the side of not really enjoying that foggy forest scene. It's just a very I feel like the cars are kind of made out of paper mache in it. It just feels like Bond runs into them once and now all of a sudden they flip upside down and the car lights on fire, and just all this stuff that would just never happen if a scenario like that happened. And even though I'm sure the car that Bond was driving at the time in the course of this scene was strong and you could probably tip over maybe a small car with it, some of these cars that he's tipping over are a little big. And so it's just like, that was the one moment of this movie where I had a hard time suspending my disbelief. There's, it's a Bond movie, so there's always going to be that one scene or that one moment that's kind of hard to suspend the disbelief. For me personally, the foggy forest scene, specifically the car portion of it, was a little hard to believe for a little while. But overall, guys, I'm going to give No Time to Die a 9 out of 10. I think it's just a terrific movie. I think there's a lot of great risks and a lot of great messages and vibes that the film pulls off successfully. And really the only kind of negatives I had with it is that the action scenes do feel a little too far away from each other. The goofy scientist guy with the briefcase does get a little bit annoying after a while, and unfortunately they give him a lot of screen time in this movie. The editing really could have been a little bit tighter. I think a good, solid 20 minutes of the film could have been trimmed out with a more perfect theatrical cut for this movie. This could have been like the great director's cut vision of the movie. So I thought the editing could have been a little bit better here. And like I said, the foggy forest scene was a little too hard for me to believe in. I know some people online that actually really like that scene, but I thought the opening scene alone was easily one of the best action portions of the movie. So No Time to Die, I absolutely love it. It's definitely a 9 out of 10 for me. I highly recommend seeing it. Definitely go see it if you're a James Bond fan. For those who are wondering what Bond films to see before this one to kind of best understand the story, I would say Casino Royale and Spectre are the two to really kind of go back and rewatch if you forgot a lot of the things that happen in those, because the film does tie back into both Spectre and Casino Royale quite a bit. It doesn't so much do it with Quantum of Solace and Skyfall. They kind of leave those films alone for the most part. But as far as where the story goes, I would say Casino Royale and Spectre is kind of where it likes to reconnect back to. So 9 out of 10 for me. I highly recommend seeing No Time to Die. It's an excellent Bond movie that takes a lot of risks, and it definitely pays off. It's just an incredible film, and I highly recommend seeing it.